Hi everyone, welcome to today's custom closet webinar. For those of you who don't know, my name is Kayla. It's so lovely to see all of you here today. We do have a nice large group today. So today we are going to go through a custom closet, but before we do, just a couple of small housekeeping items. We do have a number of other staff here on the call with us, and partially that's so that they can answer your questions and also keep me in line. So if you do have any questions, there is a chat function in your GoToMeeting control panel. So feel free to type those in and you'll see their response below. We do, as I mentioned, have a number of people here today. So it may take a couple of minutes for them to get to you, but they will address your question. Also, at the end of the presentation, we are going to have time for live questions. So if you have additional questions or if you need clarification, if you need me to show something again, I'm going to have time for that at the end of the presentation. Feel free to ask those if you have a mic. You can also type those in if you'd like a staff member to ask that question of me at the end. And we are recorded today, so we're going to send out a replay probably tomorrow sometime. So don't feel like you have to remember absolutely every detail that I'm sharing here today, because you'll be able to rewatch it at a later date. And also, if you need to leave early, that is another way that you can rewatch it. It's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the program.
Go ahead and jump in. So I'm just opening up an entirely new blank plan here. And to begin any design, we're going to want to draw out the walls of our closet. So we have a couple of options. If I select the straight wall tools, I could draw out the entire floor plan of the home that I'm working with, or I can just draw out the closet space, which is what I'm going to do here today. So it doesn't really matter for the purposes of what we're doing today, whether or not I use the exterior or the interior wall tool. This happens to be an entirely enclosed space, so I am going to go ahead and just use all of my interior walls. Obviously, if we were going to be working with framing or needing to order our framing, we would definitely need to be very particular about what wall type we're choosing, but for what we're doing, I'm just going to use those interior 4 walls. So to create a wall, I can click and drag in my plan, and I'm using my left mouse button right now, and when I release, it'll draw the wall. I can continue to do that all the way around the space of this room, but I'm going to go ahead and select Control-Z a couple times so we can look at another way that we can draw out this space. If instead of using the left mouse button, if I click and drag using my right mouse, I can release the mouse and it puts me in what's called continuous draw mode. So now I can just left click. Every time I move my mouse to create a wall, I'm going to left click to drop in that wall. And it allows me to very quickly and easily draw in this closet. So as soon as I did, I have automatic dimensions that are turned on here. And I'm going to use these automatic dimensions to quickly dimension out my space. I usually recommend not worrying too much about the dimensions as you're drawing. Finish them out after you have the general shape of the room drawn. So we have a couple of options to dimension this. I can select a wall that I want to change the dimension, or I can select a perpendicular wall to the dimension, the wall that's actually going to physically move in space, and then I'm just going to click right on that dimension and decide how long that wall is supposed to be. So let's say we're going to do 120 inches. Hit enter, and it will update. I prefer to select the wall that's actually going to move rather than select the parallel dimension to the wall. The reason being, when I select a dimension parallel to a wall, I have to be very specific about, do I want to move the left end or the right end? What specifically am I going to move? Versus when I select on a wall and select the perpendicular, I know that I'm moving this wall. So I'm going to select its perpendicular dimension, and type in 42 inches, hit enter, and I'm just going to go around the length of this room. So here we're going to select this wall. I can also do in feet, so I'm going to do just 12 feet and hit enter. And I have just one remaining dimension. So I'm going to select this wall, select the perpendicular so I can say how far it's going to be from the first wall that we started with. And I'm going to say 150 inches. Hit enter, and now I have my space dimensioned. Now I'm going to get into a 3D view to see this space. So I'm going to select my camera tools, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the Perspective Floor Overview. So this is going to allow me to look down into the room, but I'm also going to turn a couple of my walls invisible so that I can see into this space. So I'm going to select a wall, hold down my control key so I can select multiple walls at once, and down in my edit toolbar, I'm going to select to make these walls invisible. So that's an option just right here. With one click, it's going to go ahead and make those walls invisible. I'll make them visible later on. This is just while we're working so I can see inside the space. Now I'm going to grab this tab right here that has my camera view, and I'm just going to pull out so that I can have these views tiled side by side. This is helpful so I can draw in 2D, which can allow me to be a little bit more precise and actively work with my dimensions, but I can also see what's happening in 3D as I go along. So to start with, I'm going to work with my cabinet tools. And let's take a look at the closet that we're designing here. You saw a picture of it early on. So this is the closet that we're working towards. Here's our floor plan. And I'm going to start with my fourth elevation over here. So we're going to do this big section for folded clothes and for shoes. So I'm going to do a full height cabinet in order to do this. So in my cabinet tools, I have a full height cabinet, and our cabinet tools are extremely malleable. So it allows me to make enough adjustments to this that I can do a number of different designs. So I'm going to change the dimensions in my plan view before we open it up. So it'll be 1 foot deep, and I'm going to just extend across to where that wall will be eventually. Then I'm going to open up this cabinet, and I just double clicked to open it up. So here we have this large full height cabinet, and we're going to make some changes to it. I actually do want it to be 90 inches tall, so that's perfect. I don't need to make any additional changes to the dimensions. If I hadn't changed the dimensions in my floor plan, I might want to do so now. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the depth of the toe kick. We don't really need a full toe kick, but I do want the space for it. So I'm going to leave it 4 inches high, but reduce the depth. Then if I select on a component of this cabinet, it's going to take me down to the front sides back panel and specifically select the component that I want to edit. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and change it from a door over to an opening. And what I want to do is divide this opening into 4 segments. So if I wanted to change the shelving with the component selected, I can go ahead and specify those shelves. So if I wanted to make them thicker, or if I wanted to reduce the number of shelves in this component, I can do so. This also would be a good time to change the item height. I'm going to accept the item height as it was, but if you did want to change it, this is where we would do that. And now, accepting any changes that we've made, I'm going to go ahead and split that component in 2. So now I have 2 openings side by side, and I'm going to select each of those openings and I'm going to split them again. And now we're going to do something very similar down here. Before I do that, I'm going to select OK so that I can apply those changes, see it in 3D, and then open it up again. I like to do this every so often with cabinets. Every couple of changes that I make in a cabinet, I'll just select OK so I can accept those changes. The reason being, we don't have an undo button that's going to work within the cabinet specification, so that just allows us to accept the changes as we go along, to make it easier if I need to undo something down the line. So again, I'm going to select this door component. I'm going to change it from a door over to an opening. And this time I'm going to divide it quite a number of times. So I'm going to split it vertically and just continue doing that multiple times. It doesn't matter right now the width of each of these items because we're going to equalize it at the end. It's more the number of items that we have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 segments. And I want to make sure that I have 11 segments. So I'm going to just select 2 more and split them vertically again. And then once I have those 11 segments, what I'm going to do is come up to my horizontal layout. You can see I can minimize and maximize, and all of those openings that I just created are under the heading of that horizontal layout. And when I select that, I get an equalize button. So this allows me to equally spread out each of those shelves that we created so that we have an equal distance between them. And now I'm going to take the two end ones and I'm actually going to change them over to be blank areas rather than openings, because we're going to have a partition that goes right up against it. So instead of an opening, I'm going to make it a blank area and a blank area here as well. Alright, the only other thing that I want to do to this cabinet is under moldings, I just want to remove the molding that's on this cabinet. We don't need a molding here. Then I'll select OK. You can see those changes, that cabinet that we made. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to place a base cabinet this time. And this time we're going to create some drawers. So if we take a look at our view again, this time we're going to work on this segment. So we're going to create a couple of dressers for our closet. So with that base cabinet, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I'm going to change the width of it to 44 inches, and I'm going to do 51 inches high. And then I'm going to make it 12 inches deep. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with the toe kick. I'm going to eliminate the depth, so basically it winds up being a blank area as opposed to a toe kick. Then I want to change the style of this cabinet. So first of all, under box construction, let's go ahead and change it over to a framed cabinet with a traditional overlay. And then I'm going to come down to my door drawer panel and I'm going to change the drawer style. So I'm going to open up my library, come down to drawer styles, and I think I'm going to choose this profiled one. So now any drawer is going to take on this style, so we're going to create more drawers that will all utilize that same style. And then I'm going to change the drawer handle. Again, we'll just find our hardware here. I'm going to find a pull style, a ring pull or a bail pull. And then it looks like I just need to pull it down just a little bit further. So let's bring it 3.5 inches down from the top so that it actually is within the drawer profile. And then I'm going to come back to my front sides back that we were working with earlier. I can select the drawer. Let's make it just a little bit thicker. Let's make it a 6-inch drawer. And then I'm going to select this door, change it over to a drawer. Not a double drawer, just a regular drawer. And then we're going to split it horizontal a couple of times, and then I'm going to split each one of those drawers vertically. It looks like I need to bring that handle down just a little bit further, so let's come back down to door drawer, and let's bring it down maybe 5 inches. Too much. 4 inches. There we go. Alright, and then I'll select OK, and you can see that cabinet that's created. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this cabinet right up against the wall, and then I'm going to select it and start moving it away and hit my tab key so that I can say just how far from the wall I want this to be, because I know that this cabinet needs to be exactly 1 foot from the wall. So I'm going to type in 1 foot, select OK, and if I select the edge you can see we're exactly 1 foot. Then I'm going to make a copy of this cabinet and just pull that copy out so I have 2 identical drawers side by side. And we'll clean up the materials a little bit later. So now I'm going to use my shelf tool and I'm going to create a shelf going all the way around this room. So we'll start just on the wall that we were just working with. So it's another cabinet option. I have a shelf that I can place. I'm going to place this shelf, extend it across the room, open it up, and I'm going to change it to be 1.5 inches thick. And the floor to top we're going to make 90 inches so that it matches right up with where the full height cabinet is on the other side of the room. Okay, so there's that shelf put in place, and now I want to make a copy of it and copy it along this wall. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. I have a line tool right here. I'm going to draw a line right at this 45-degree angle, select this shelf, copy the shelf, and there's a sub option to reflect the copy. So I'm going to reflect that copy right about this line. So now I have it along this wall, and I'm going to go ahead and just move and resize it so that it lines up with that space. select that shelf that I just created and go ahead and copy it and reflect it across this room and adjust it and do it again. I'm going to go ahead and select copy, reflect the copy, this time around this section of the room. And then again, resize it. Alright, so there's all my shelves placed. So now I'm going to place some partitions. Again, under my cabinet parent tool, I have a partition that I'm just going to drop right here. I'm going to open up this partition and I'm going to make it 1.5 inches thick and 90 inches tall. Actually, we'll do 90 inches minus 1.5 inches, so 88.5 inches. That way it can slide right underneath my shelf. So I'm going to go ahead and use my point-to-point move so I can slide it underneath, because if we look in 3D, this is what we have right now. So point-to-point move is going to allow me to select a corner and then select the corner that it needs to move to. Then I'm going to take this partition and copy and reflect it underneath this shelf, copy and reflect it across this room, copy and reflect it across this shelf, and then I'm going to use this line again to copy and reflect that right across the corner, only I'm going to just adjust this a little bit to slide it right into place. Then I'm going to copy and reflect, take this guy, copy and reflect him across. This is just the easiest way for us to do it. And one last time right across this shelf. So almost done with all my partitions, but for the next part, I'm going to go ahead and get into a wall elevation. So in my floor plan, I'm going to select my elevation tools. I'm going to select my wall elevation and just place an elevation right on this wall. So here we're going to go ahead and if we take a look at our final plan, we're going to work with this wall here. So I want to place 2 additional partitions, one 40 inches from the initial one, then 32 inches. And then I need a shelf that's going to line up with the height of my dresser, so 51 inches tall. So let's start by placing those partitions. So I can grab a hold of this partition right here. It's kind of hard to tell. I also have one over on this side. So I'm going to grab a hold of that partition and I'm just going to copy and move the copy. And then I can use my dimensioning tools. So this is a great time for us to place our automatic dimensions. We used one earlier for our floor plan, or rather it was already placed when we created the floor plan. I'm going to do the NKBA auto elevation dimensions because it's going to be very specific to cabinets and that's what I'm working with mostly right now. So then I'm just going to select this partition, select the dimension, and we're going to type in 40 inches, hit enter, and it'll move it directly into place. And then I'm going to copy and just pull out that copy and then make sure that it's dimensioned exactly 32 inches from the other one, which should leave us with 40 inches over here. And now we're going to go ahead and create some shelves. So I'm going to start with this shelf and I'm going to just copy that shelf and paste hold position. So I'm going to paste an exact copy of that shelf in the same place. So it doesn't look like anything changed in 3D, but I have 2 in the exact same position right now. Then I'm going to adjust that shelf and let's just move it down a little bit. We'll dimension it here in just a minute and get it into place in between these 2 partitions. Then with that shelf selected, I'm going to use my dimension here on the side to make sure that it is 49.5. Since it's a 1.5 inch high shelf, that'll leave it 51 inches high. And that's actually from the toe kick. So let's eliminate the toe kick dimension, which we're not going to need. And select that again, and 49.5. Enter. So there we have that shelf, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and reflect that copy right about the middle of the room to place it on the other side. So now only 2 more shelves to place, and the easiest way for us to do that is to go back to our plan view. I'm going to select those 2 shelves that I just created. Actually, let's do one at a time. Select this shelf, copy and reflect that right about the room. So we've got that over here. We need to do just a little bit of resizing here. And then the same thing on this side. So copy and reflect right about the center of this area of the room, and we'll resize it. So the copy and reflect are going to be the easiest way for us to just get all of these things that we already got into position and not have to redimension it. So that finishes off our work with our cabinet tools. Now let's place some accessories here. So let's go back to the wall elevation that we were working with, and we have in our library, which I'm going to open my library by going to View, Library Browser. We have some closet items that we can work with. In particular, there is a bonus catalog that you can download off of our website for closet items. And I'm going to select a closet pole and just place that in my plan, and then rearrange it into position. So this one is designed to hang on a wall, but if we did have an item like shoes that we wanted to place, those can usually place directly onto a shelf or onto the floor, where you can then, and yes, I'm going to go ahead and turn on that layer. If you wanted to then rearrange where that was, you can select it and move it into place. I'm going to delete those. I just wanted to show you how you can place accessories. And so I also could let's do a standing mirror. This is the mirror that I used in my plan, so I'll just drop that in, and we can resize it if we want to. So there are a number of different items that we can use to really flesh out this design. So just to finish out this one wall, I'm going to go ahead and select this pole, copy, and paste that copy right here. And then we'll go ahead and select both of those and copy and reflect them right about the center of the room to place it on the other side. So now that wall is finished as far as accessories. And we could copy that pole all the way around the room if we wanted to. So now the only other thing that I wanted to do just to finish out this design was to work with some of our materials. So I had a wallpaper on the wall, and I also had carpet in this particular room. So I'll start by searching for a wallpaper that we can paste onto our walls. So I'm going to come into our bonus catalogs, and we have a fabric wallpaper. And the one that I chose was in the linen category. And let's expand this a little bit so we can see our options a little better. And this was the one that I wanted to use for our closet. So for the sake of what we're doing today, I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right into the room. It's not going to override the drywall, so we'll still be ordering drywall for these walls, but we're just going to paste it right on top so that the material in 3D is going to change over to a wallpaper. Now I'm not going to do the same thing for my flooring. I'm actually going to open up the room so that I can also address the underlayment. So I'm going to come down to the structure of the room and floor finish, select to edit, and first I'm going to select the texture and find a carpet. Just do a nice white carpet. So we have a 3/4 inch carpet, and then I'm also going to do an underlayment. So let's change this to, let's do a nice 1/2 inch foam. So that's going to change not only the look of it, but also the structure underneath of the finish. So now let's take another camera view. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this view, go back to my plan view. In my elevation, I'm going to select to save that elevation and then exit out. So now it's saved in my plan view. I can send it to my layout if I want to. We're not going to worry about that today. And I'm going to take a camera view, but first I want to make sure that all of my walls turn visible again. So I'll select all 3 of them, again holding down my control key, and then I'll just select to make them visible. Then I'm going to get into a 3D view, And it looks like there's one more material that I forgot to edit. So I'm going to use my material eyedropper to grab this white material, and then I'm going to paste it onto the cabinet there. So now I'm going to move around and adjust my view to get a good view of this, and I can export this picture in a number of different ways. And let's exit out of the library browser so we can see this full view. So I could export it as a picture view. Go to File, Export, Export Picture. Choose the size that I want to export it as. A typical HD image is going to be 1920 by 1080. And then I could save it. If I just select OK, it'll ask me where I want to save that image. I would call it Closet, Client's Closet. And then if I wanted to then import that into the layout view, I could, or just send it directly to the client. Otherwise, in a small space like this, one of the most effective tools is to export a 360. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Export 360. And again, I'll need to choose the size. So let's double it. I'm going to do 4096 by 8192. I'm still going to need to say where I'm going to save it on the computer itself. So I'm just going to call it Closet 360. But I'm also going to save it onto my cloud. And I'll just call it Closet in my cloud. So this is my account on our website, chiefarchitect.com, where I can then use that link to send it to the client. So I'm going to select OK. It'll ask me to log in. Then it'll export this out. And when it's done, it'll give me this informational, just letting me know that the export happened. And then I can go to my account on our website, chiefarchitect.com. And in my account, I have the ability to manage my 360s. Here I have that closet. I can view it. So rotate around in this space and see every angle. Or I can make it public. And if I make it public, then it's going to have this option to share. So here's a link that I can send directly to the client and they can view it in any web browser. So that's a very effective way, especially for a small space like a closet, because trying to get a good angle of it is going to be really difficult. Just putting the camera in the middle and exporting as a 360 allows us to see every wall really effectively.
And while we're here, let's just take a look. Pretty well finished up our design today. A couple of things that I just wanted to point out. We do have some upcoming webinars. So the same place that you went to sign up for today's, next month is going to be kitchen design is our theme. So next week's is our kitchen remodeling, where we're going to go through a kitchen remodel. Same exact time, same process. So you can sign up here and you can see the additional ones that we have coming up as well. So kitchen islands in a couple of weeks, kitchen cabinets, all sorts of kitchen items. We do have quite a few resources on our website in addition to these webinars. So if you have not spent any time with those, under our user center, we have some getting started resources. We have free training videos, help articles, a lot of different things to really help you delve into the software, get any questions that you might have answered. And we do have, if you're looking for a more intensive, comprehensive training, we have a 4-part training coming up. It's done virtually, so it's done over Zoom, but it is live. One of our trainers will walk you through the process. So you can sign up for that here. You can see the upcoming dates. They're starting next week for the residential, introductory, and intermediate, and then we have a kitchen and bath starting a couple weeks later. And then we will have them again in November. So there's a couple of options for you. You can sign up for those at any time. All right, so thank you guys for attending, and we're going to go ahead and move into our live question and answer. So Carrie, if you do have a question, please, there's a hand raising function in your GoToMeeting control panel. Just go ahead and raise your hand, and Carrie will go ahead and call on you.
We have Michelle Lamel. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
When you made the shelf and the partition, I didn't quite understand how you shortened that down. That was really fast for me. So shorten them both down to connect them. I missed what that was about.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is, was it the point-to-point move?
Yes, that's probably what it was.
Okay. So point-to-point move allows you to just position something really accurately. So it takes an object and it moves it. So I'm gonna use the point-to-point move. It's this option right here. And I can just click on an edge that I want to move and then select where I want it to move.
Okay, that was what it was. I thought you put it, but you actually moved it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question from Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm wondering, is it possible for the shoe shelving, is it possible to put those shelves at a slight angle so you can show the client if you're wanting to spec out an angled shelf for their shoes?
Yeah, so I think that would be best done. I think it might be a Reba shelf item, but let's just take a look. So shoe shelf, this is just kind of a free floating item. You could place each one of these individually, but I also think that you can do so from within the component itself. So I'm going to click on one of these and I'm going to change to an appliance door drawer. And I think I would have to have multiple components for this to work really well. But let's see what happens. Yeah, that one didn't work super well. Scott, Adrian, do you guys have any ideas on how it would be best to do that? Do I just need to place them manually?
Or you could adjust the shelf height once you're in the cabinet shelf specification.
Zoom in here and specify the shelf. So there's the height of it. Okay, so we can choose a different shelf type. That's cool. I did not know that. So if we get into the library, let's see. It was called shoe shelf. There we go. Perfect. That worked really well. Thank you, Adrian.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Who do we have next, Carrie?
Kayla, we have Kevin. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, Kayla.
Kevin, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I noticed in the beginning, it looked like you might have been using exterior dimensions when you drew the floor plan. So if I'm doing a remodel and not a new closet, so how would I set it to interior dimensions?
Okay, so there's a couple of different options we have. One would be to select the room. It would still show it exteriorly, but we have these NKBA auto dimensions. So on a room by room basis, you can just select, I'm going to turn on that layer in this view, and that's going to show it on the outside, but if you were just doing one room at a time, that is an option. And those are going to go usually more to an interior setting, and I'll just undo that. Otherwise, you could do them manually. So we do have an interior dimension, but Scott, do you have a different idea?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kayla. You could, Kevin, if you want your dimensions into the interior of the surface and you want them either in the room or next to the room, probably one of the things you could do is change, Kayla, if you change your, say, plan view to the kitchen and bath view, and maybe turn off your grid line so we could see this a little easier here. So there's a couple ways. There's a couple ways you could do this. Just click inside the room as one. And then in your bottom toolbar, there's a dimension tool called the Auto NKBA Interior Dimensions. And go ahead and turn those on. You can turn that layer off. It looks like you got extra ones, just delete those. You can choose which layer to come in on. So this is one way you could do it. So those show up as inches. It's going to the interior dimension. And then if you specifically wanted those inside one, you could just click on the dimension and move it inside. That's super quick. So you could just click on it, move it inside the room. Or you could just use your interior dimension tool, maybe up there in your toolbar there, Kayla, and just run an interior dimension. Just drag it right through the wall, and then you've got your dimension showing up from edge to edge or sheetrock to sheetrock, depending on what your finish is.
And then if you want to resize it, can you just click on that interior dimension and resize it that way?
So I can still use those dimensions to dimension my walls, if that's your question.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and in this case, Kevin, Kayla, if you just click on that 24-inch for that pop out there, and let's say you put it in 30 inches, that will move that wall. Of course, it's going to move your cabinetry around because we've already placed that, but you can use any of the dimensions you've already drawn to position your walls.
Perfect.
Thank you, Scott.
Kayla, we have a question from Carrie Bosch. Go ahead, Carrie, and ask your question.
Hi, Kayla. I was wondering if there is a way to put sliding doors in an upper cabinet and or a base cabinet for that matter. I can find hinge doors, top and bottom hinge, side hinge, panels, but I can't figure out how to make them sliding.
Yes, so like almost barn door style on a cabinet?
Yes, but not necessarily on the outside of the cabinet as an integral part of the cabinet itself, much like you would a closet door that sits inside the frame.
Okay. Either way, the only way I've ever done it is through using the sliding barn doors. So if others have other ideas, they can feel free to chime in. But we have, hopefully I have them, sliding barn doors. So this is typically what I use. You can use any panel. You don't have to use barn doors. One of the things I like about it is that it has the hardware associated with it as well. So you can just drop these in. Typically what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to have an actual symbol panel. So I don't know of any just straight in the library. Adrian may be able to guide me, but normally we're going to need to turn this into a 3D symbol first. So one that can be placed as a fixture. So this may be a multi-step process, which is fine. So I'm going to start in a new plan and drop in a barn door. And in 3D, I'm going to delete all the surfaces that I don't want to become part of this new symbol I'm going to create. So I'm going to use my surface deleter to just go ahead and delete those and delete the casing. It may make sense to actually open the casing to delete it, but we'll just do it this way. I'm not able to get a hold of that one. There it is. All right. So once I've isolated it to just a single door, then I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a symbol. I don't know if you've done this process. And I'm just going to make it an interior, we'll call it a fixture. It also could be a furniture item, depending. And we'll go ahead and add it to the library. So there it's going to drop in that fixture. It did also have casing. I probably should have just opened it up to remove the casing. Let's just do that. I like things to be accurate. Remove the casing and remove our sill and our frame, or at least closer. I do this process a lot. You wouldn't believe it based on right now. Tool symbol, convert to symbol. So then we're going to add it into the library. And then back in the plan, I'm just going to drop it in. I'm going to need to obviously do a lot of resizing here to make sure that it's in place. In an elevation view is probably going to be the most accurate. And we'll just get it wherever it needs to be. And if I need to slide it into the cabinet, I can. If I didn't want the hardware, obviously I would have removed the hardware from the door style itself. But basically you need it to be an actual physical fixture to drop in before you can just add it to a cabinet. So does that help? Did that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Kayla, can I add something here?
Yeah.
This is Al. Take a couple, you could also do the same type of thing if you just take a cabinet door out of the library, put it in a plan, double it up and make it look like it's sliding and make that into a fixture as well.
That's a great idea. So yeah, if we just
take any cabinet door
and just drop it in. So instead of placing it in a cabinet, we're going to just place it as an item, which is essentially going through the same process that we just went through to allow us to place it as an actual symbol. And then if we drop it into place, in our elevation view. We can move it around. If we need it to have hardware, we can add that as well.
And you can take two of those, set them offset so they look like sliders, turn that into a symbol and bring it back in as a cabinet item. So it'll actually be a cabinet door.
Yeah. So if we kind of move them a little bit apart and then we hold down Control key to select them together, we can block them together or we can convert them to a symbol. If we convert them to a symbol, this is the exact same process we just went through in the new plan, where we're taking this and we're putting in the library as its own symbol. So we can add it as a fixture and then it's available for us to just place. And if you had hardware, you could also use that, multi-select them together and make that a symbol as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Al.
Of course.
Kayla, we have a question from Selwa. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Kayla. Question we've been talking about, I think she answered me, but still, when I've been doing revision for the cabinet, for example, during the process of the revision, I made a mistake. I can't do undo. I saw you are doing it. So is there any way that we can go back a little bit, 2 steps or 1 step to fix the problem instead of starting all over with a new cabinet?
Mm-hmm. So what I did was not an undo. So I mentioned you can't undo within the cabinet, just within the dialog itself. So there's 2 ways that I get around this. One is to exit out of the dialog and save my changes every couple of steps along the way. So when I make a change, I'll then select OK and open it back up. That way, if I'm doing something that's really complex, if I make a mistake, I can just close out, undo the cabinet to the last position I saved it in. The other thing that I did was I had accidentally split along the wrong end. So when I split vertically, I realized that I did not want to have 2 side by side like that. So instead of exiting out and starting all over again, I just selected a component and you can delete that component. And depending on how complex the cabinet is, if it's just like this where there were just 2 items, it'll just spread the other item across that area.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Does that help at all?
Yeah, it helped a lot. I mean, for me, I went through that multiple times and it's a time consuming, especially if you went to the advanced level with that. I mean, you're almost going to be done with the cabinet and here you go, it has been messed up. You need to do a couple of undo. So I have to start all over again and with the fresh one.
Yeah, so selecting OK to apply changes more often, getting into the habit of that is going to be helpful. And then if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend that you find a few different complex items to just model that are not a part of a project for a client, so you don't have the stress of needing to get it right. But find something on House and just practice, because the more you can get kind of comfortable with adding and deleting components and modifying components and understanding the different locked faces, the easier those mistakes are going to be for you to fix them without needing to completely undo everything.
Right. Well, it's mostly for the kitchen and the bathroom, especially when it comes to adding the vanity with it. Sometimes it doesn't sit on it, and it had what do you call conflict with the cabinet layout, like the division in the middle underneath the vanity. But this is very simple. The closet is very clean and it's easy to manipulate it and work around it.
Yeah, I understand, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the only question I have, and I appreciate your response.
Of course.
Kayla, we had Jetty write in a question. She was wondering if you could demonstrate how to apply custom materials, colors, and textures.
Okay, like importing, does that sound like which ones?
I think so.
Okay. Let's talk about creating custom materials. So there's a couple of different, I'm going to start by using just materials that we have already in the program. So here we have, let's say, this wallpaper material. If I wanted to customize something about this existing material, I can use my Adjust Material Definition tool. It's this little rainbow tool here at the top. I can click on a material, and there's a number of different things I can edit about it. The texture panel is going to allow me to edit the scale. So maybe I want this to be smaller or larger to tile in a different arrangement. So let's make it smaller. I'll make it 10 by 10. I can also offset it. So if it's a tile and it needs to be along a particular edge, the offsets can help with that. And then I can blend this texture with a particular color. So this is going to allow me, it effectively works like a stain, where I can click on the color and I can choose another color and it's going to blend that color in. So there I've made an entirely custom material that I can then use. The other option would be to import a material, and I do not know if I have a suitable option. Let's see. So to import a material, I'm going to right click on my user catalog, select new material, and under texture, here's where the file source for the texture is. Basically, a texture is just the picture that you're using for the material. So if it's not a color, it's not just a straight color or stain, then it's going to have a texture associated with it. So I can browse out and find an object. So let's say that we're going to use the closet itself as a material. Select OK. So you can see that material applied in my 3D view. It's going to give it a general scale. There also is an option to stretch to fit. So maybe I'm going to paste this image onto a TV screen or a picture frame. So stretch to fit is just going to stretch across the full object. And then we have the same customization tools from there. We're going to need to give it a name. So closet render. And select OK. And there it is as a material. This is not the same process as adding a picture to your layout, for instance. So this is not the process we would go through if we wanted to take a closet render and put it on the layout. This is to add it as a material. So then I can paste that, and I was in room mode, so it pasted that across the full gamut of everything I had. Let's just do the wall. So there we have a weird room within a room option. Hopefully that answered that question.
Thanks, Kayla. We have a question from Rosie Falens. Hi, Rosie. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Kayla. Calling from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, great. Canada. All right.
So I have, I'm working with clients right now who have some beautiful artwork, original artwork. And I'd like to show some of that artwork in my designs. And can you just show me how I can transport a photo? So I've taken photographs of all of their artwork. And so it's, what is that, a PNG file or, yeah. And so can you show me kind of a way to place that on the wall and in a frame, let's say just a gold frame or something?
Yeah, so it's the same process that we just went through as far as how to import it. But then if we want to add it to a frame, there's two different ways that we can do this. One is to use, this is something I use all the time if I'm doing a canvas. So if it's a canvas picture, I'll use the custom backsplash tool, and I'll just draw a backsplash on the wall. And then I'll take that picture that I imported and just paste it onto that backsplash. So that would be more of a canvas application. But if we want a frame, then let's see, let's search through for one. So here, that's a door. So here's a mirror. I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and show in browser so I can see some other mirror options that might be helpful. So here I have a rectangular one. I'll just choose any option, select to place it. And you're seeing the wallpaper still because it's a reflection, it's a mirror. But then I would go back to that imported item, imported material, and just click to place it in there. So that's the wrong ratio. I want to resize it, but that's the general idea. Okay.
Kayla, we have a question from Scott. Hi, Scott, go ahead and ask your question.
Or is there a way to set cabinets at a bay wall here where the wall has 2 degree angles and then a run? How would you set cabinets into that wall set?
Okay, you were breaking up a little bit there, but it sounded like you were talking about angled walls. At what kind of an angle?
If you had a bay area where the wall is bowed out, how would you set cabinets into that where one side of the cabinet has to be angled while the other side is straight?
Okay, yeah. For the most part, we're going to deal with this mostly with our countertops, if I understand your question correctly. So I'm going to move over to another area. If we have like a wall and maybe a 45-degree angle, is
That's correct. That goes 10 coming back.
okay. So what we want to do, this is what I typically do for them. I'll start by placing the angle, and then I'll place one cabinet in either direction. And depending upon how it's going to meet up, let's do a little bit more room here. I will just move it until it bumps right up against that corner. So it'll try to snap right to that corner, and then it'll fill in for the countertop those blank areas. If it was, you mentioned a bow, so I'm curious, are you talking a curve as well?
No. It's like a bay window. You've got 2 45s on each side and a straight in the back.
Gotcha. Okay. So if we also have on the other side here, let's just select this and do another 45 coming off where it's like a bay window.
Right. And
so
then on the left side, the wall goes straight out.
On the left side, so over here.
Yes.
Gotcha.
That.
So a true bay window. I mean, there's a number of different ways you can handle it depending upon how you want to handle the space. If you're going to have cabinets that are coming across like this, where it's straight across, in that case, it's going to be a custom countertop. So for this instance,
cabinet section, there's a stove that sits in the middle of the bed with a cabinet on the left and a cabinet on the right.
okay. So it would be the same principle as before. We're going to go ahead and place it along this wall. And as soon as these back corners meet, it should create that automatic countertop for us. Not sure why it just deleted it. There we go. And then I'm going to place one here and one here, right along the edge there. And then I'm just going to resize this one till we hit the corner. And as long as you have corners that are meeting up, whatever angle they're meeting up on, you're going to create just a blank. If we look at this in 3D, here's what we have going on. So there's a blank area for the cabinet that it'll just drop in, basically a filler.
Right.
So
what if I wanted that
filler to meet up? Go ahead, say that again.
What I wanted that filler to be.
Then you might be getting a little bit more tricky. Do you have any thoughts about that, Scott or Adrian, maybe?
Hey, Kayla, Scott.
How's it going?
One of the things you could do is just place a door and drawer in an elevation view, and then just put a cabinet label over the top of it and call it an angled cabinet.
Placing this out of the library, drop.
Yeah, just snap that up there and slide it in. And then if you take a look at that in 3D, you may have to position it, but that should, well, you picked a great door, but there you go.
I think what I'm going to need to do is have to probably sign up for some support and put my drawing up so that you can see.
Yeah, it would be a great option for personal training. So personal training is going to be, as it sounds like, you know, one-on-one with a trainer where they can look at your plan. So that probably would be a good option.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Kayla, we have a couple more questions. We have Joanne Hurd. Hi, Joanne. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Kayla.
Hello, Joanne.
When we are placing different accessory items on like closet shelves or bookcases, and our cabinetry goes up to the ceiling with some sort of molding, but let's say we've got 3 or 4 open shelves, and we're placing, you know, either closet items, accessories, or books, and we drop them in. Sometimes they don't always drop where I want them, and so I go to the plan view, and you can't, because it's not I'm not placing it just on the top shelf, I can't manipulate sort of that forward back movement of, you know, the relationship to the front edge of the shelf. And because we've got one shelf below another shelf, and, you know, the varying accessories, it's like I can't get to the item to manipulate it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So I have a few different answers for this. So I work with accessories a lot, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's get back into this wall elevation just to see some ways that we can handle that. So if I have this cabinet all the way up to the ceiling, what can happen is if I go to place an accessory, so let's find shirt. So if I go to place an accessory, it'll try to place it on top of that cabinet, which means it's now not visible in my 3D view. So one of the things that I will do, a few different things. Number one, I may drag this wall out further. So if I drag it out further and I eliminate a wall, then I can see that full wall, and then I can place items on the floor and move them along my Z-axis. One of the other things I will do is basically eliminate space. So if I have 2 cabinets side by side, that's not a full big cabinet like this, I might eliminate one of those cabinets just temporarily. I'll just add it to the library so I can drop it back in later. But basically so that I free up floor space, because floor space is where we can more easily add items. And then in an elevation view, it's just easier for us to be able to manipulate in an elevation view. But also having multiple views open side by side is going to be really helpful for this. So if I have a plan view and my, not camera view, elevation view, where is it? This is why you shouldn't have multiple views, quite so many like this. All right, so if I have my plan view and my elevation view side by side, then I'm able to see, oh, that dress shirt didn't place exactly where I wanted. And I can be adjusting items in my 2D view as well as in my elevation view at the same time. So I'm seeing all of my axes, my Z, my X, and my Y all at the same time. One other thing that I will do is sometimes if I'm trying to determine which object in my 3D view or in my plan view that I want to move, so if I have objects on top of objects on top of objects, changing the fill style of one of those objects can be really helpful. So if in my plan view, I have a couple of shirts that maybe are just a little off center. Oops, I meant to copy that first. I'll open up one, and the fill style for a shirt is not going to be the same. This would be more like shelves where you can add a fill style a little bit easier. I was thinking about that when you were asking about the shelf option. So opening up a shelf and changing the fill style to something that's like neon, just temporarily so you can see in plan view what it is that you have selected, or if there are 2 items that are kind of almost entirely on top of each other, being able to choose the correct item more easily. Changing the fill style can be helpful.
Huh, interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that. That's changing the fill style to get the right shelf selected when you're in plan view is what you're saying, right? And
exactly, yeah. And then just one other little tip, using transform replicate is another really handy tool. And the reason why I really like it is that if I'm in my plan view right here and I want to move something along the Z-axis, it's really the only way in a plan view to be able to move things along an axis that I can't visualize, other than opening the object itself. But sorry, Al, did you have something to say?
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, there's something that you can try. It's a little bit more involved, but if you want to use the layers, you can designate specific layers for these shelves to go on, and you can lock specific layers so that you can only select maybe the shelf that's at a 24-inch level. So if you have these shelves set up, or a layer table set up to take maybe shelving at 12, shelving at 24, shelving at 36, each one of those layers can be locked individually or combined so that only one of your shelf layers is unlocked, which means you select that one. Okay, so everything else can, all the rest of the shelves are locked except for the one you want. And you can designate specific levels for those shelves and make specific layers.
Yeah.
And make it very easy to select a given group of shelves depending on their level, just by locking and unlocking layers.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like a challenge, but
It is
a good one.
It is, but once it's set up, it's very quick.
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much.
Sal, that's a great idea.
Thanks, Kayla. We had somebody write in and ask, what if you want to put multiple items stacked on top of each other on a shelf? Can you demonstrate that, please?
Absolutely. So I would always start with the single item. So if I'm just copying it, that's going to be the easiest. So if I'm copying it, I'm just going to copy it and pull the copy out. So if I'm doing shirts on top of shirts, that's a nice easy one. If I have one item that's different than another stacked on top, like these are two different types of shirts, you'll place them each separately, usually in two completely different places. And then I'm just holding down my control key. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but to kind of free up all of my snaps and allow me to really easily move these around, holding down my control key, and I'll just kind of place it right on top of itself. Elevation is going to be absolutely how you want to do this. If you aren't in an elevation view, it's going to be much trickier because you're going to have to open each item and specify its floor to bottom separately.
All right, thanks. We have one last question from Tom Vose. Hi, Tom, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, this is Tom Vose calling from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Great job today, Kayla. It's great to be part of this. My question is on the material list and just takeoff information, how much information we can extract from that and how much, and like what is the shelving material basically, and can we change what the actual shelves and cabinets are milled from?
Very good question. Okay, so let's just take a material list and let's take a look at how the shelves are showing up in the material list. So if I just go to Tools, Material List, I'm just going to do it for the full floor, which in this case is just one room. I'll exit out of this elevation so we can see it more fully. And our shelves are under the cabinet tools, I believe. So here we have this shelf that's showing up. We have its size, and its material is currently listed as just color Snow White, whatever I had selected. Here you can override it. If it needs to be like a particular type of wood, you could override it right here. You can also override it within the object itself, would be one way. So the object information, you can add additional comments or information about what type of wood you're using or what type of joiner. And then the other way would be to adjust the material itself. So if we have a material and we are using this Snow White material, I could select a new one, but actually I'm going to go down to Plan Materials so I can select the one that we just had, which is the Snow White material. Edit it, and maybe I call it prefabricated wood or oak painted or something like that, so that then it's going to show up as that in my material list. Does that help answer that question? Does anyone else have any ideas?
That helps a lot. And I saw that it reflected that it was 1.5 inches thick. It was 12 inches deep, 1.5 inches thick. And I remember you changed it to 1.5 inches, and you dropped down when you were making the shelving. So that makes sense. And then for the cabinets themselves, the software doesn't really get into joinery at all, does it? It's basically just here's a box and this is how many boxes. And will it tell us the number of shelves inside the boxes?
In the schedule, I believe you can have shelving, but in the material list, I don't think it's going to piece out the shelving right there. There are some ways, just like we were looking at the object information where we could add comments. So that's always a place to add additional information, including if you have information on joinery that would be easy to type out, that's some place that you can do it. But it's definitely not going to be automatically dropped in. I don't know if that helps you.
That's very helpful. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Looks like you've gotten to all the questions, Kayla.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Remember that we do have another webinar happening next week at the exact same time. We're going to be doing kitchen remodeling. Scott is going to take over that one for us. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to help you out with those. And I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Thank you.